So last time in higher algebra, we went through problem 11, and I had given you a bunch of tips. And now, this time, I want you to turn to problem 12, and I'm going to give you a little tip, and we're going to write it right in the margin next to each problem. Some just to help guide your thinking. You done?
Yes.
Okay. There's a little directions on how to write a pass right here. And I assume I passed you next time. Here's how to do it. Okay. I'll sign it after you're done with that. Okay, so for next to number 12, here's my tip of the day. You need a common denominator. So what would be a good common denominator when they got a 3 on the one fraction and a 2 on the other fraction? Feels like 6, doesn't it? So then what do you do to this fraction? You multiply by something. You multiply by 2 and 2. And on this fraction, multiply by something logical. So I won't give you too much help, but there's a start. That's the very first thing you do. You want to get them to both have a denominator of 6. Then don't forget to distribute this. Don't want to just multiply the first one by 2. You multiply both of them by 2. All right, moving on to number 13. There you go. Have a great day. On number 13, my tip for number 13 is that this graph, 1 over x plus 2 minus 3, anytime you have to graph, make an XY chart. It's your best friend in graphing. And if you just connect a bunch of dots, tell me that there is a single kid in here that wouldn't know how to connect these dots. Everybody knows how to play connect the dots. That's easy, right? So it's about getting some dots. So you put in x is 0 and you see what happens. I have 1 over 2, 1/2, minus 3. What is 1/2 minus 3? It's negative 2.5. And that's my first point. And then I would find a bunch of points like that. Once you got a bunch of points, you'll be able to connect the dots. Last thought, the asymptote, it starts at y equals 0 and then moves the asymptote moves down 3. So this would start at y equals 0, which would be like this, and then it moves down 3. So this tells you where the asymptote moves. They always start at y equals 0. So in this case, we'll have an asymptote that's down 3. Okay, on number 14, they're just asking, hey, which way has that been moved? So all you got to answer on number 14 is like, oh, it's been moved. And let's remind you, this one they didn't ask, but we'll do it. That one's been moved 2 to the left. If they add, that's left. If they subtract, that's to the right. Remember, this stuff on the inside is kind of backwards of what you would think. It's called counterintuitive. And the stuff on the outside moves up or down. And if it's negative, that feels like down. And it is down. You can trust the stuff on the outside. Trust your gut. All right. Hint on number 15. Watch. If I have 2/3 divided by 3/4, this is the part that gets changed. The 2/3 does not get flipped. It changes to flip it 4/3. So I'm not doing number 15, but you should get from what I just did that the second one flips. So you flip and multiply. All right, on number 16, sometimes people wonder, where is the inside on a function like this? Because the inside stuff is horizontal moves. Horizontal on the inside, high, and vertical on the outside, low. That's the horizontal move. That's the vertical move. Okay, number 17. I'm going to give you one that's not right, but looks a lot like the right answer. if I started with 20 and I grew by 15%, that's what it would look like. That's an exponential equation that has a start value here, and it grows with the plus, and whatever the growth percent goes right there. And you always have an x in the exponent, that's usually your time. There's your hint on 17. On number 18, I said your best friend was your best friend in graphing was that chart. So on number 18, all I do is make points. Like x equals 0, figure out what y is. X equals 1, maybe x equals -1, and just keep on putting in numbers and see what you get. One thing that it'd be good to remember right now is, what if you had 5 to the -1? Do you remember what that is? Because that might happen in number 18. It will happen in number 18. When you have a -1 power, you remember? Okay, it's a flip. Try to get that through your head. That's going to be on the final. When you have a power of -1, that makes you flip your answer. So if you stick a number into the function on number 18, like a -1, then your 4 would flip and become 1/4. All right, moving on to number 19. Oh, this is the one where you have to have formulas. I will help you remember the right formulas for these. And on the test, we will be giving you those formulas. So they're on the board right here. But for those following along at number at home, number 19's correct formula, that's for an arithmetic one because it's adding 2 each time. So if I want to find u sub 13, I use this formula. U sub n is equal to, and this is arithmetic kind, and this is the kind where you add up a bunch of things. This is the kind where you're just finding a term. So it's a0 plus n minus 1 times d. You may want to write that formula down right now while it's fresh in your mind. So u sub 13 is equal to the starting term. That's the start. And n is this. The little subscript number, that's the n. And d is called the difference. That's what you're going up each time. Okay, so there's some tips on 19. Number 20. We're going to get close here. We'll save the last few for the last day. On number 20, if they give me one of these, I don't want to do yours because you only get one practice problem, right? So I'm going to do one like it. Let's say I started with 25 and I go up 5 each time. 30, 35, 40, ... Then U1 was 25. And do you remember what comes after UN? This is a good month ago. It's got another U. U sub n is equal to, yeah, n minus 1. And then whatever you do to it, you do right there. Was I timesing by something each time? No, I was adding something. Now, I think on yours, number 20, I think you're timesing by something each time. So you'd put it in parentheses. But in mine, that I'm just giving it as an example, I was just adding 5 each time, so I could put plus 5 right there. And then don't forget when you write a little formula like that you always say n is greater than or equal to 1 bigger than this. So you usually have u sub 1, so then it's n is greater than or equal to 2. A lot of people are going to forget that on the test, and they'll lose a few points. Okay, we might as well figure out number 21 then, and then we'll stop there, and I'll give you hints on those last few on the last day. It's number 21. Number 21 is asking you to do a sum to infinity. I'm going to do one right now. I'd say I'm 30 feet from the door. So my sequence is going to go like this. I walk halfway to the door, which would be 15 feet, and then I stop and pause and go, oh, I'm halfway. Then I'm going to go half of that. So I get halfway is 15, and then half of that, 7.5. And then I'm going to say, I'm still not at the door, but I went half. Dot, dot, dot. And I keep getting halfway to the door, halfway to the door, halfway to the door, and you can add them all up. And here's the formula you use. The starting value over 1 minus the rate. That is the sum to infinity. This only works for numbers that are going down, down, down by a multiple. So it's got to be a geometric series. And the R number will always be less than 1. In my case, you take this divided by this, 7.5 over 15, and you'd see it was 1/2. I was getting halfway to the door each time, right? So then, in my case, I'd go A0 is 15 over 1 minus 1/2. And you simplify that down, and in my case, that's 15 divided by 1 minus 1/2 is 1/2. And that's 15, and instead of divide by 1/2, I can times by 2. And so my answer would be 30. And that makes sense. I was 30 feet from the door, and it takes, and add those all up, and you get 30. Okay, so it was a sequence. You use this formula for number 21. Okay, I'm going to save the rest of them for tomorrow. Today is a short period. If you want to come up and ask individual questions, you can. The final is not tomorrow. The final will be on, let me think, Wednesday, Thursday for you guys. The final will be on Thursday. We'll have plenty of time to do it. One thing, this packet is due and counts in your grade. Okay, so I strongly encourage you to do it. You've got a key for it, so there's no reason why you couldn't have done it and done it well. And you'll turn that in right as you take the final. Don't turn it in early. Wait till the day of the final and say, okay, Mr. Server, here's my review packet for some last points. That's all I got for you for the video for today.